Hi, my name is Miltiadis Bouchalakis, and in this design and programming tutorial, we will try to create a digital piano from scratch. First, we will start by doing the design in Figma, and then we will do the coding. When it comes to the coding, we will start by creating our semantic HTML. Then we're going to do the styling with SASS. And for the last part, we'll add interactivity with vanilla JavaScript. At the end of the tutorial, you will be able to use your mouse to play the musical notes or your keyboard. Apart from that, I'll be sharing the code on GitHub where you can download it and run it locally, so you could follow me along as we progress. If you stay with me until the end, I promise you that you will learn a lot of tricks when it comes to design, and in particular when it comes to styling and coding. So come along and let's start doing the digital piano. So yeah, let's start. The first part will be focused on how to design the digital piano. So I have already opened a Figma file. Let's name it, just for the brevity. Let's create a digital piano tutorial. Then I have already Googled an image of a digital piano, so I'll copy paste it here. And then since we don't have to create it from scratch, we can copy paste the dimensions from a digital piano. Let's try to recreate it. So I'll create a frame. I think the correct dimensions are like 595 and the height 550. So great. Now that we have our frame, let's try to add a layout grid, and Figma supports this. So let's click the plus icon. We want to change the settings to be columns. So I'm going to select it to be the value here to 7, since we have 7 white keys. So that's our max value. We want the type to be stretched in order to expand to 100% width of the frame or container. And I don't think we need any space between the keys. So yeah, there you have it. We have our first grid. So now that we have the grid system with our columns ready, let's try to create the white keys. So I'm going to select a rectangle. Then it needs to fit the height and the width. So let me make this 85 because that's the correct dimension. We need to name the rectangle to be a white key because we need to make this a component. So now I'm going to make it a component. And then the next step is to duplicate it 7 times while holding the shift key. So this is 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now that this is a component, let's make it to have a border, just to look more like a key. And yeah, I think that's it for the white key. The time has come to create the black key. So let me select the rectangle. I'm gonna draw it inside here. As you can see, it's duplicated or mirrored multiple times, and that's because we have it inside another component, which is a white key. So let me drag it outside. And now it's there one time. I'm gonna name it black key. And let me make it look like a black key. And for the last part, we need to create the border radius for the bottom left and the bottom right. And obviously, we need to make sure we have the correct dimensions. And when it comes to the width, it's 55. And when it comes to the height, it's 360. Let me close the border radius panel. So it's time to make it a component as well. Now we have to position it properly based on our design. So the first key is 53 pixels from the x-axis or from the left. And let me duplicate it to create the second one. The second one should be 180. The third one is 302. Let me go for the fourth one. It's going to be 395. And for the last one, we're going to have it 492. As you have noticed, they are not centered in the middle. And that's because the creators of the piano have decided that when it comes to the geometry, they're not going to be centered. I'm getting excited because I'm going to make the black key 3D and the white key later on 3D as well. Let's move first with the black key. I'm going to go to the core component. And we need to add a few effects. And when it comes to the first one, it has to be an inner shadow. And we're going to change the color. I'm going to make it to be a little bit gray. So I'm going to make it 8989. And it needs to have 50% opacity. Let me close the color. When it comes to the rest values, we need to increase the spread. So we're going to make it 62. And for the rest, we're going to make them 0. Now we need to add another. It's going to be again an inner shadow. And this time we have to make it black. It's already black. Let me open here. But we will make it 50% opacity. And when it comes to the other values, we need to add -11. So as you can see, it already appeared from the right-hand side. We need to make the blur a bit more just to fill in better with the surroundings. And for the last part, we need to add another inner shadow, but this time from the left, as you have guessed. So this time it's going to be 11. And again, we need to have the blur 10. And let's change the opacity to match the previous one, which is going to be 50%. And let's change the Y to be -19 because it's going to add black from the bottom. And let me close this one. And as you can see, it starts to look 3D. Amazing. Now it's time to do the 3D effects for the white key. So let me select it. We need to decrease the height a bit. So let's make it 5 to 7 because we're going to add the rectangle at the bottom. So let's do it right now. Around 25 pixels. Let's add the stroke as well. Perfect. And let's move it a bit higher. And let's match the fill color. And let me deselect it. And then I'll select it again, and I'm going to use a plugin. I have installed the perspective toolkit, which you can find from the plugins in Figma. It's free. And we're going to rotate it a bit on the left. As you can see, it already looks 3D. But there is an issue. It doesn't show on the left-hand side, so we need to select the thread and then deselect the frame, the clip content. And it looks perfect. The only thing that remains is to add the white border on top, and that should be it. So we know that Figma doesn't support multiple different border colors, so we need to create the white layer, as we said. So let me create a group here because we're going to have multiple elements inside. And I'm going to select the rectangle. And then I'm going to make this 3 pixels, push it further down. And we have to make it white. And as you can see, we have to zoom a bit just to fine tune it. And a little bit from the right, we're going to remove some pixels. And now that I zoom out, the piano looks ready, and we should go and start coding. It's time now to start the coding. So I'll show you how you can download the code from the GitHub repository, how you can run it locally, and how you can do some code changes. But bear in mind that you have to have Node installed, and that should be the only prerequisite. So let's see how you can do that. Want to download the project, you will find underneath the YouTube video in the description a link that goes to the repository. So since I'm already logged in and I have added an SSH key, I'm just going to copy paste the origin or repository. I'm going to go back to the terminal and I'm going to make a new folder called projects. And inside there, I'm going to clone a link, just copy paste, and I'm going to press enter. So this will download the project locally and will create a folder called Digital Piano. So let me go inside there. And since I want to use Visual Studio Code, I know that if I do this, it will open the code inside the Visual Studio Code. So you can see now it's opened. And then I'll try to use the terminal from there because you might prefer to do this. Great. So what we want to do now is we want to do npm install, or if you're using Yarn, you can use Yarn install. And then inside the package.json file, you can see we have the scripts. So I'm going to use the dev script. So if you want to run a script, you can use npm run, and then I'm going to use the dev script. And this should run the browser, and you will see the final result. So let me go back and let me change the branch. So I want to start from the beginning. So there is a branch called project start. And this should start with the initial state. So this is not the final result. So if you want to follow along, make sure to check out the project start. And if you want to see the final result, you can check out to the main branch. I think, that concludes how you can install locally and run the project. Make sure to open Visual Studio Code or your favorite code editor. In our case, as you can see, I have opened Visual Studio Code and created an organized folder structure for us to begin. Let's have a quick look. Inside our body, we're going to start by creating our container. I'm going to use an HTML5 tag, main. And inside there, we will add a section tag. Then we need to include the classes. So the container will have the class with the name piano. And the section, if you remember from the design, we're going to have the diatonic scale class. So now that we have our container ready, we're going to go inside it and we'll start with the white keys and then with the black keys. So let's start with the white keys. I want to add a comment as well, just to differentiate them. So I just press a hold key, which turns the text into an HTML comment. So we're going to start by creating a div element, but as you have probably guessed, a div is not the best HTML element, so we need a button because button denotes an interactive element and we want to press a keys or use our keyboard, and that communicates to the browser and the assistive technologies that this element is entitled to trigger an action when clicked or pressed. So let's convert this to a button. And then we need to add the class name. So this is a key and the variant is a white key. And then we will add a data key attribute. So let's type it. And the value is going to be C4. This is needed for our JavaScript to identify the nodes, but don't worry right now. We will explain it later on. And then we need to add some area labels for the users that cannot see. So we will say that this is node C and then press A to play this node. Apart from that, for the users that are able to see, we need to add a hint. So the hint is the key that they have to press for the keyboard if they don't want to use a button. And that's should be how we create our white key. So now let's do the same for the black keys. Let's type the black keys HTML comment. And again, we're going to use a button. And when it comes to the button, we're going to use a class. Again, it's type of key, but the variant is black this time. And obviously, we need, again, a data key. And when it comes to the value, this time we're going to use EB4. And we're going to have an area label. And we will say this node is E flat. Press W to play. And then we need a hint. I think we're going to make it a span with a class of hint. And we're going to do the same here. And class hint. And that should be it when it comes to the black key and the white key. For the last part, we will try to enhance a little bit more the accessibility, which is crucial for people that have disabilities. So when it comes to the class, we will add again array label. So let's add it. And for the value, we'll say that this is the middle piano keys. Apart from that, we need to add for the white keys and the black keys an area press value, which denotes if the key is pressed or not. Let's do the same for the black keys. And now I'll try to copy paste the keys for the white and for the black, because right now we have only one key white and one black key, and we need to have 7 white keys and 5 black keys. So let's do it. So instead of doing it together, I have already pasted the black keys and the white keys just to save some time. So as you can see, they have the same class, but different data key and array label values. So we have 5 black keys now, and we have done the same with the white key. Now it's time to do the styling. So we're going to use SASS like we said in the beginning, and in particular, we're going to use .scss. Instead of using vanilla SCSS or SASS variables, I'm going to use a lot of SASS maps in order to make our code modular. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments and I will reply. But if you follow along, it should be straightforward in some ways. So let's start doing the styling, and then we can start doing the JavaScript. Let's start by going again into our CRC folder, and we will create a new folder. This time we will call it styles. And then we will start by creating a few folders. So obviously we need to have our main manifest file. So let's call it main SCSS. And then we need to have the base folder where we're going to add styles that target HTML elements. Then we're going to have a components folder for our components. We are using the SMAC SCSS folder structure, so I'm not going to explain it for this video. But if you're interested, I'll leave a link below. And then we're going to have the settings and our functions folder. So before we start creating our components, we need to find out our design token. So we need to see our design and try to figure out what are the colors, the typography, the spacing, and other values. That's super important if you want to create a modular SCSS and ensuring that we're using a single source of truth. Usually, when it comes to design tokens, we add them in the setting folders. And for every folder that we create, we need to have a single manifest file, which we're going to call it index.scss. There we can create our variables, and we can import this file into our manifest file. So let's do this. So now that we have imported a variables file into our manifest index, let's start creating our variables. So we will create a type of variable which is called an SCSS map that can contain and group multiple variables together under a single name. So let's start. We will start by creating our theme, and that's how you create an SCSS or a SASS map. We will follow a key value pair. So the first, the primary is going to be the key, and then the color, which is going to be black, will be the value. So after this mini explanation, it's time to go back to Figma. We need to find out all the colors that we're using, and we're going to start with the white key because that's what's repeated the most here. So let's start with the white key. As you can see, if we go to the fill and we select the style, then we can add the style. So this is going to be part of the colors, and we have to name it a white key. And then we can create the style. So now you can see that inside the colors, we have the white key. And you can see now, instead of having the background color, let me select again. We have the style here. When it comes to the white key, we have the top border as well. Let me zoom in a bit. So we need to add this one because it's a different color. So again, I'm selecting the styles. I'm going to click the plus icon. We want it to be part of the colors. I'm going to call it white key border. This is added to the colors. And again, it's added as a border. So let's do the same for the black key now. Let me zoom out a bit. So I'm going to go and say here. As you can see, obviously we need to add the black color. So let's go here, create a new style. It's going to be part of the colors. And we're going to call it black key. Apart from that, the black key has a few different effects. But the thing is, we cannot add every different color, but we can add to the styles. It's like the shadow effect. So we're going to call it black key shadow, black key shadow. So now that we have figured out all the colors that we need, let's try to create a style guide, and then we will convert this into code. Now that we have added all our colors inside our styles, it's time to create our style guide. I have created another page here, but if you want, you can click the plus icon and you can create a new one. So let's go to page 2, where we can have our style guide. I'm going to create a new frame. We're going to call it a style guide. Obviously, we can name the page as well. And then for the fill color, I try to add a color that is not white or black, because we have white and black. And I'm going to select a rectangle. And then from the styles, I'll select the first one, which is a white key. I'm going to press the Alt button just to duplicate it. And then again, we're going to do the same. So this is the border. We have another color. And this is going to be the black key. And let's not forget that we have the shadows as well for the black key. But this is part of the effect. So I'm going to click again the style button. And we have the black key shadow. For some reason, yeah. So this is the correct size. So I think now that we have our style guide ready, we're ready to reverse engineer and start working within our SASS. One great thing about the new Figma version is that you can switch to dev mode, and this is available to the new open beta version. So it lets you inspect values. So as you can see in the code, it acts like the dev tools. It produce the value as a CSS3 variable. And if you don't want to use a CSS3 variable, you can still copy paste the hexadecimal color value into your clipboard and you can put it into your IDE. So I'm gonna switch back to our Visual Studio Code. So now that we're back in Visual Studio Code, we already have our colors. So I'm gonna copy paste them. Essentially, we have 4 colors as we saw from the style guide. Now that we have our colors or our theme, we're ready to create our piano. Again, this is gonna be a SASS map. We will try to identify more details there, such as width, add the keys, and add their color, the height again, and the width. So I assume we need to go back again in Figma. So let's go. So now that we're back in Figma, we need to go again to the first page where we have the piano. For the piano, we need to get the width, which is 595 pixels, and the height, which is 550. Then we need to get again, I suppose, the width for the white key, which is going to be 85. We already know the color, and then we need to do the same for the black key. So the width is going to be 51, and the height is going to be 360. So as you can see, we have created now the piano key. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. We have the width, which is 95 pixels. We have the height, which is 550. And then we have the keys. And inside the keys, we have the black key. And we get the black color from the theme. And then we get the white key from the theme again. And we have the width here. And I think that concludes our piano SASS map. So now, since we're using map.get, we need to use a new syntax for SASS. So we need to import SASS map, and this should be it. For the next step, we need to go inside the base, and we can add our global styles there. Usually, there you have styles that target HTML elements. I'm gonna use Roboto, so this comes from the Google fonts. And then for all the elements, we want to use box sizing, border box. And for the body, when it comes to the font, again, we need to use Roboto. So let's add it, Roboto and sans serif as a fallback. Now we're ready to add styles that affect the layout and produce class names. So let me create a new component. We're gonna call it diatonic scale. And inside there, we will add the manifest file. So let's call it index.scss. And then let's create the class name. So when you have a component, you expect to have a class name that is the same with the folder. And inside here, I'm gonna add the properties that we need. So let me try to copy paste them. So now we have created our first component, which is essentially our container for the piano. For the next part, we will try to create the keys. So let's go back to our components and create a new folder. And I'm going to call it this time key. And we don't need to have like a black or a white key because black key and white key are variants of keys. So we're going to keep it as a single file. Again, let's create our index.scss file. And we're going to add inside here a key. And inside here, we need to have, like we said, a black key and a white key. And as you know, because we're using SASS, this is going to be like key black, and this is going to be key white. So I guess it's time to open our local host and try to see how the layout is affected when we do our CSS changes. But before we need to do that, we still need to add a little bit of more files in order to be able to run the server. So inside our CRC, I'm going to copy paste our assets, and there we have all the piano notes, and that's going to be needed because we load them with the webpack when we load the page. And then for our components, I think we're missing a single import file or manifest file, so I'm going to create it. And then we need to import the container or diatonic scale. It doesn't matter in which order we import the files because we're using modular CSS approach, so we don't have any namespace conflicts. Apart from that, we need an index file for JavaScript in order to run everything. So we're gonna create an index.js file, and inside there we need to import our main manifest file. .scss. So now we're ready to open the terminal. So let's use internal terminal that Visual Studio Code provides and works with our operating system. So we need to run it with npm. npm expects to use run in order to run the scripts. And then we need to find the script or the identifier for that script. And in our case, it's dev. So I'm gonna type dev and then press enter. After I press enter, the localhost will try to run and the Chrome window will open. So let's see it in action. As you can see, Chrome has opened and there is an issue. But let's try first to split the screen in half just to observe everything. Great. So let's figure out what's the issue. So cannot resolve. So there is an issue inside index.js. So as you can see, is inside styles and it should be inside the root src folder. So let's move it first. We still have an issue, which makes sense. So we need to reference the styles. And then we need to save it. So as you can see on the right-hand side, the file works. So now we're ready to go back into our components and go back to our key and start coding the white key. Let's see if everything is working properly. One easy trick to check it is let's add like a background and let's make it red and save the file. But I don't see anything changing on the right-hand side, so let's inspect to see if the class is there and figure out what's the issue. So as I can see, we only have the button styles from the user agent style, so our classes don't apply. Let's figure it out why. So we're importing the files within the components, and when it comes to the main manifest file, we have no import, so here is the clue why we're missing it. So we need to import first the settings, which add no styles. And then we need to import the base, we change our HTML, and then we need to import our components. And let's see. Oh, now we can see that a lot of stuff changed. So we see the background of red for the white keys. So let's go back and let's start coding our first component. So now that we have everything working, it's time to toggle the terminal because we don't want to see it. And let's toggle the file explorer as well in order to have more space. All right, so let's start. So I'm gonna start adding the background color. So I'm gonna use the map get. So we need to find the map. We know that all the colors are inside our theme, and then we need to find the key that we want to get the value out of. So in this case, we need to use the secondary key. And as you can see, the color has changed from red to F5, F5, which is not exactly white, but a little bit slightly different. Then let's add our height to be 100%. And we need to add our width as well. But before adding the width, I think I prefer to use the map kit. So let me explain what it is. So we're gonna use the use, and then we're gonna say get me from SASS, the module map. And then we can go here, and instead of dash, we can use map.get. Now we can add our width as well, now that we have the height. So let's use something similar. So again, we need to get the width from the map. And this time the width is inside the piano, and we know it exists inside the keys. And then we need to go to the white key and get the width from the white key. Let's try to inspect the width. We expect it to be 85, but when it comes to computed styles, let's see how it is right now. Let me try to find the width, and I will try to increase it a bit. Bear with me. So the width for it is now 77, but that's because the black keys are positioned in the flow, so we need to get them out of the flow. So let's say if we make them position absolute, this is going to work out. And as you can see now, we get the correct width. So let's go back to our styles and continue to work with the keys. So for the next thing, we need to add the border because now it gets a border of the button and we want to override this thing. So again, we need 1 pixel solid, and for the color, we need black. So we're gonna go to the theme SASS map, and we need to get, I think, the primary. Now let me try to put the black keys at the top because now we can see them in the middle. So let me put them there just for now. And for the next part, we need to create at the bottom of the keys the 3D effect. So for that one, we're gonna need an after pseudo element, and we need to use a position relative for the parent technique and the position absolute for the children, just to position it. Obviously, the most important thing when you have the pseudo element is to use the content. Otherwise, there is nothing displayed there. All right. So as you can see, there is nothing on the right hand side yet because we haven't added the dimensions and the colors. So let's start with it. So for the width, we need to contain 100% of the parent. For the height, we need to make it 20 pixel. And for the background, we need to have the same color. as a parent. So again, I'm going to go into themes, and we need to get the secondary color. Apart from that, we need to position it at the bottom, but at this time, it needs to be outside of the parent. So it needs to be bottom 20 pixels. And then let's position it a little bit on the left. So let's add -3 pixel. So, and we need to add now the borders. So we need to add the border top. Actually, let's add the border first. So 1 pixel solid, black. And then let's use again the maps because we want everything to be modular. So map.get, theme, and the black color is the primary one. And we need to override the border top. So we want this to be white. And let's make it 2 pixel based on the design. And let's get it again. So the white key is a tertiary. You might wonder why we're using primary, tertiary, secondary instead of using black or using green or using whatever color is there. This is a good practice because in the future the design might change. So we're using names that don't define how the style looks. Obviously, you know that the piano is always the same, but if someone in another, let's say you're working the same thing and someone wants to change it, then with this practice you wouldn't have to change the code, but just the reference value within the SASS map. So now we need to transform it just to make it look 3D. So I'm going to use this cube property, and we're going to make it 350 degrees. And let me show you how it looks like in the browser. So let's go in the After Effect, in the After pseudo element. And as you can see, we use 350 instead of 0. So we go from the left-hand side, and 350 adds the effect. And I think we are done with the white key, but we're missing one tiny thing. So if you remember, we had the hints, and as you can see, they're positioned in the middle. So we want them to be positioned at the bottom. So let's try to do this. Let me go inside the white key and create another class which reference the hint. So as you can see, again, we have the hint which belongs to the key white. So we need to make it position absolute. Let me save it. And then we need to have it at the bottom. And I think that should do it for the hint. So let's see so far what we have created. It looks like the white key is close to the design and it has a similar look. And the next part is to style the black keys. So let me close the white key, and now we should try to focus with the black key. And now we're ready to start adding the width and the height. So let's start with the width. We're going to use again the map.get. And then we need to go inside the piano where we're going to get the values there. So we need to go inside the keys and then go inside the black key. And then we need to get the width. As you can see, the black key has changed dimensions when it comes to the width. And then we need to do the same for the height. So I'm going to copy paste this and gonna change this to the height. So now, instead of adding the background to be black, we need to use box shadow instead. So we need to go back to Figma. I'm already in the dev tool, in the dev mode. And as you can see, this is a beta. So let's try to copy paste the box shadow and go back to Visual Studio Code. So I'm gonna copy paste here, save. And it's not exactly the same as the design. So let's tweak it a bit. I guess the tool needs to be a little bit improved so it doesn't match it exactly. I want my color to be black and I want the opacity to be 65%. I think that's very close to the design. So let's go and change the code here to reflect the changes. RGBA accepts a variable or a SASS map here, so we can use the map.get. So we need to get a color and we need to go into the theme. And then we need to get the primary, which is a black one. And obviously, I forgot to change the opacity. So this can be 65%. So yeah, I think it looks very close to the design. So the next step is to add the dimensions or the positions for the keys. So let's go back to the design again. So as you can see, the first key, it's 53 from the left width. The second one is 148. Third one is 302, and so on and so on. So I'm just gonna copy paste the values, those values back to the code. So let's go back and let's do it together. So now we need to position them, but before we do, let's revisit a little bit our markup. I'm gonna go to the template. Oh, for some reason, one white key was commented. Let's uncomment it and refresh it. So as you can see, the keys, the white keys are the first one. And then we have the black keys without a different container. So the only way to target them, let me close again this one, is to use something like nth child. And then since we have 7 white keys, we're going to start from 8. So let me copy paste the values that we found out from the design as well. And as you can see, they are positioned exactly how they look in the design. So the only part that remains is to fix the hints. So let's do this as well. So now we need to style the hints as well for the users to be able to figure out which key they will press on the keyboard. So for the color, we need white. So we're going to use map.get. Again, we need to go to the theme. And then we need to get the tertiary. Let's save this one. And then I think I need to position them at the top. So let's use position absolute. So top 20 pixels, left 0. And then text align it to be at the center, but we need to add some width in order to occupy the container. And I think that covers the basic layout. We only missed the border radius, so let's add it. So we need to have like 0 at top, 0 at the right, and 10 pixels at the bottom left and the bottom right. And we need to remove the border from the button styles. As you have guessed, now it's time to do the final part, which is the vanilla JavaScript part. In this part, I'll try to use some modular patterns. So we will create the piano as a component, and we're going to use the module pattern. And on top of that, we will have a lot of events. So you will learn a lot of techniques, how to manipulate the DOM and how you're going to work with events. And in the end, obviously, you will see how you can use your mouse to play the piano notes and how you can use your keyboard to do the same thing. So, yeah, come along and let's do it. We have reached the final part of our video. So, if you have made it so far, it's time to learn how we can add interactivity and code the functionality with our JavaScript. As you can see, we only have a single JavaScript file so far. which we are importing our styles. And because we're using Webpack, we're using a dynamic import, and Webpack knows how to compile it. I think we need to add a JavaScript file or folder, just like we have with the styles, just to separate the concerns. And inside here, I will create our first component, which is going to be called piano.js. And we're going to create a function. Obviously, we're going to create it as a piano. And I'm going to use a capital P as a first character because this is going to be like a constructor function, meaning that we can reuse this function somewhere else. Let me add export the operator as well because we will import it in a different file. And now we can create our first function inside, which is going to be a play note with lowercase this time. So this is our function. And inside here, we're going to pass a single note as our parameter. So we're going to use the HTML audio element. It's a web API that allows you to dynamically manipulate audio files. So you can play, you can pause them, and it's going to help us a lot with this web application. I'm just going to close it now, and I'm going to increase the Visual Studio Code to contain 100% of the width. And we're going to start coding. So we need an audio file, just like we said. It's going to be new audio. And then we need to reference the assets folder. I'm going to show you where it is. And inside there, we have audio files. And we're going to use interpolation. And we're going to pass the note as an argument there. And we know it's going to be an MP3 file. So let me show you. We have the assets. And here you will find all the piano notes reference where you can use them depending on your key bindings or your markup. You can say that we're adding all those audio files with the Webpack. So we have like an MP3 config loader that injects everything inside our HTML document, if in case you were wondering. So let's go back. So we have the most important thing is to be able to play a note. And then now we can do audio since we have created a new object with a new keyword, audio.play. And that will play the corresponding note that will pass here as an argument. Our function play note will be used when we have a click event. So when we're using our mouse to play a note. And we want to use a keyboard event, so you can press your keys and on your keyboard and you can play the note. So we want to create a keyboard map with the notes that we want to play. So let's create an object. So there's going to be an object, as we said. And I'm going to copy paste inside the keys with the corresponding values just to save some time. So when it comes to the white notes, you can use on your keyboard A, S, D, and so on. And you can use the top keys, the Q, W, E, to play the black keys. I think we can export this file later on, but let's create the function to play the keys. So we're going to create a function again, play note by key. We need to pass our key. And then inside here, we're going to create a constant. We're going to say data key. And this, based on the key event, so we press A or S, it's going to pass from our DOM the MP3 reference in order to play the sound. Yeah, I'm not sure if that makes perfect sense, but we will see it later on. So I have to use the keyboard map object, and inside there, we will pass the key, which will look up our values. It's like a lookup table or a lookup variable. And then if we have that key, we will play the note by using our function that we have defined here. So you know this has one parameter, so we need to pass one argument. And we need to return, because we're not going to create more functions, we're going to return an object. And inside there, we will pass by reference our functions. So play note, comma, play note by key. What can I say? This is like a module. Let me put it here. It's like a module pattern. And it helps us exporting an object or an array usually and organizing the code and encapsulate the functionality. And I think this is our component, our piano component. What we can do is we can export this file and import it here again. So let me create a new file. And we will call this binds.js. And inside here, we will include our previous object and we will export it, go back, and we're going to remove it. And we're going to use the import. And we're going to pass it inside here. And yeah, we're ready to go. We're not going to add any more code here. So it's time to import it into the main index file. So we have the imports at the top, and I'm going to import the piano. And then we had another file that we separated, and we're going to have the keyboard map as well. So now that we have, I'll import them here. Let me create a new constant. I'm going to name it digital piano equals piano, and I'm going to invoke the function. And as you can see, this function returns an object and it has two functions, the play note and the play note by key. So digital piano now has access to those functions, and we can use them like this, like play note or play note by key. I guess it's time now to get the notes from the DOM. Let me decrease my ID again and reveal the piano. Why we need to get the notes from the DOM? Because we are doing web development and we want to get the notes when you do some events. But before we do the events, I'm going to go to the console and we'll try to get most of the notes. So I'm going to use a document. I'll say query selector. And then let me close this one. So we want to get a class. So I'm going to use a dot. So let's get the white key. So it's going to be white or key white. And then we want to get the key black. Of course, we need to add the dot because we want to get CSS class. So now let me open the list. It's an array-like list. So let me see. We have all the white keys and we have all the black keys. And we're ready to copy this code back here. I'm going to increase again the ID. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy paste this code. And we need to add this into a memory location or a constant. And I'm going to name this piano keys as you saw. Before we start coding our events, there is a smart way that we can optimize how we can map further the piano keys. So right now, when it comes to the piano keys, we're getting all the elements, but we are not directly associating each key with the element. It may sound a bit confusing, and it's an advanced technique, but let's see how we can replicate this technique and explain it further. We already know that piano keys, it's a node list, so it's like an array-like, which is indexed. So if we use the spread operator and we get the node list from here, we're going to create a JavaScript array, and then we have access to the reduce method. And as you know, the reduce method takes a callback, and the last parameter takes the initial value, as you can see, but we want to return an object. So let me pass what the callback expects. We expect the accumulator, and it gets the item. So let me save this and let me make some space. We need to create inside a variable called key. And since we have access to the elements and the reduce takes them with the item, we will use the item. And then we know that we have the data set, which is how we're setting up the nodes. And then we're going to get the key. Then we need to add the accumulator and dynamically create the key. And we need to associate this with a node item. And then we need to return the accumulator. If you're scratching your head, then I would say that's normal. And I'll explain how it works. But first, we need to add the result that is returned to a new constant. And I think I'm going to call it UI because we're dealing with UI. Node key bind. And we're going to put it the object or the dictionary, say here. And let's say that this is a map, just not to be confusing. And then let's go to the browser and I'll show you how it looks like. Okay. So as you can see, we are getting the node. So those are like the files that we want to play. And we're associating them with the node elements. So instead of using, let me clear it again, instead of using the piano keys, since we saw that before, and go inside here and try to find, instead of going to the data set and try to find the key, we're optimizing and caching the process in order to use this later on with our events. So we don't have to query the DOM again and again. I hope that makes more sense right now. So let's go back to our editor. Let's create something more exciting than logic. Let's add some interactivity. And let's create our first function that is going to play our node. And we're going to hear a sound. So let me increase a little bit the panel, the ID. There's a gap. And let me close the left-hand side just to have more real estate. So I'm going to create a function, handle mouse down. It's a good practice when we have events to use the word handle and then describe the event. And then let me change this to be an event because some people might be confused if they see the shorthand syntax. You can name it as however you want, but usually you name it as an E or as an event. So we want to get the node from the UI. So we will use the event. Then we're going to use the current target. When you press your mouse down. And then we're going to have access to our data set or our HTML5 attribute. And we want to get our key, which is our node, and we want to make it to lowercase. And now we need to use our digital piano. If you remember, we had two return functions there. So we want to use the play node. And inside there, we're going to pass our node. And now I'm going to save it. I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to try to see if we can hear the node. So let me see. Oh, there is nothing happening. Well, it makes sense, right? We need to add the event into our DOM. So Let me go again and let's get the piano keys that we already have. Let's use the 4/8 because it's a collection. So we have multiple node lists. And then inside there, we're going to pass the key. And we're going to say, actually, let's call it like a node. Makes more sense. Add event listener. Mouse down. And then we're going to pass our function, which is the function reference. So let's save and give it another try. Let's see. Oh, so now we have the notes. But as you can see, there is no animation happening. So let's fix this. I mean, we press the black key, we press the white key, but we don't see the press state that we try to code with the CSS. So let's go back to our code. And then we are back to the function definition of the event. And we need to add a class. So let's do this. So we're going to use the event to access the node. And then again, the current target. And this time we're going to use a class list. And we're going to add, and it accepts a string. So we're going to add the class is pressed. I think, yeah, let's give it a try. So when I click, as you can see, we have the animation happening. But obviously the animation is not removed. So it's the same for the black and the white keys. Since we have like the mouse down, it happens when we click. But if I release the mouse, we need another event. And this event is called handle mouse up, which essentially is when we release the mouse. So when we release the mouse, we want to remove this class. So let's do it. That seems like easy, I suppose. So we have access to the event. Again, current target, class list, but this time we need to remove the class. And we will pass the same class is pressed. Obviously, inside the 4/8, we need to add for all the nodes the new event that we have. So let me copy paste this one. And we're gonna say that we want to use the mouse up. And as our function, we want to use the mouse up. Let me copy paste it. This will be better. And then let's see and test the hypothesis. Is it gonna work or not? So I'm pressing the D, I'm holding my mouse, and now I just release it. And the same happening here. And if I release it quickly, it looks more natural. And if I hold it, it works with the transition that we have. And the same for the black key. I think it looks amazing. But we have another issue. Let me show you what I mean. So when I click and I don't release my mouse, so while I'm holding it, I go to the next key and just releasing it. The class is not removed. And why is that? Whenever we trigger an event outside of the nodes right now, the event isn't registered. So right now, because we used the mouse up event, which means we were holding the mouse and we released it outside, that's what it's expected to happen with JavaScript. So because we care about quality and making a very good application, we can fix this by doing it and handling the removal of the class in a different way. So let me show you how to do this. We're going to do, again, another function that deals with events. So we have to use the handle. And then we'll say that's related to the document. And it's a mouse up event, just like before. And we want to add a function. And inside there, we have to target the the piano keys. So we're going to use the piano keys, and then we're going to use the for each method that loops. And we're going to pass an element inside there, which is a key, the piano key. And then we need to say for the piano key, we need to remove. Let me remove. Before that, we have to use the class list as well. So for the class, let's remove the is pressed. And let's see if this works. And now I'm going to release it. It doesn't. And that's because we didn't register the event. So let's register. Sorry, guys, I'm messing around. So document, add event listener. And then again, we have to use the mouse up and comma. And then we're going to pass the document function for the mouse up. So let's test it. I'm just pressing it and then releasing it. Oh, there is an issue. There is an undefined. Right, let's see. Well, where is this? Yeah, because I have the class list twice. So let's test it again. And now it works. And now it's time to code the final part, which is the keyboard events to play the piano. So let's go after our mouse events. And let's try to create the logic. So we'll create a function. Again, we're going to use the handle. And then this time we say document. And then we'll start with the key down. And then inside the function, we will pass an event. And we will try to get the keyboard input. So whenever someone presses a key, we have to get the key value. So we'll use the event dot key, and then we will convert it to lowercase because it makes our life easier. And we need the node as well. So after we get the key that we press on the keyboard, we need to map it with a keyboard map. And then inside there, we need to pass the keyboard input. So in this case, we will know which note to play, and we can pass it to the digital piano.playNote method. Apart from that, we need to get the node or the HTML element, and we need to use this caching mechanism. And again, as you can see, we're passing the node this time. And we can say that if the node exists, then for the specific HTML element, we can add the class list or the class of is pressed name. And obviously, we have to play the node. So let's try to do this. So we're going to use from the digital piano the play note method, and inside there we will pass the note. Let's see if this is going to work. So I'm just going to press A on my keyboard. Obviously, it doesn't work again because we need to register the event. So let's go to the document, add the event listener, and then we'll say for the key down event, let's pass inside there as a reference. Let me copy paste the method. Handle. Something went wrong here. Let me do it again. So handle document key down. So this time it should work. So let me put the focus here and try to press my A key. As you can see, I can play multiple times, but then again, we have the same issue, which is fine. We know how to fix it this time. So what I'm gonna do, just gonna copy paste this function again. And then we're gonna name this app. So handle document app. And what we're gonna change this time is we don't wanna play the note, but the the node, but we want to remove the class. And then we need to register again the handle and listener. So we're going to use key up. And we're going to use our new function. And let's see. Now, if I press again the A and I release it, we can see that it works perfectly. So let me press the B, say note. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the result. You can still say that we can further optimize the logic because both of them are sharing repeated code. So let's do that as well. So I'll try to create a new function, which we're going to use for both of them. I think I'll name it find node and node from keypress. Yeah, I think this name is a bit long, but it's very descriptive. So again, say here we're going to pass the event. And I'm just going to copy paste what we have from here because we want to use this function as our utility function. And then I'm going to return an object since we want to return multiple stuff, node or node. We could use like an array as well, but the order is important when we destructure it. So in this scenario, I'm just going to use an object which makes our life easier. So I'm just going to remove the duplicate code here. And what we'll do is we're going to use a constant. And then we'll use the destructure syntax. So we want to get out of the function that we're going to call the node and the node variables. And then obviously we're going to call the function. And yeah, we're going to pass the event as well. And we will do the same for our handle document key up function. Let's test again the code to see if it's working. It worked as expected, and obviously we can optimize it further. But I think that's pretty good foundations for you to start and expand the code base if you need. Thank you. Whoa, I'm impressed. You managed to stay along with me with such a long video tutorial. I know it's not easy to watch sometimes such lengthy tutorials, but I think you can see the value that you got out of the video. So now it's time to subscribe and like or dislike it as well. Put your comments below and let me know what worked for you and what would you like to see for the next video. Thank you.